We don't just kill for no reason. Even if someone crosses us, we'll try to negotiate. Do you know the difference between the foreign mafia and the Japanese one? Overseas, they kill for money. We only kill when honor is insulted. Say Don Tanaka, the Oyabun of the Matsubushi Kai clan. Perhaps the story of the Japanese mafia, Yakuza, is now almost legendary, with its samurai code of honor, colorful tattoos, and sword fencing. Films are made and books are written about the Yakuza. The legendary side of Japanese existence has obscured the real. Numerous structures of organized crime in Japan, but they are there, and they're causing a lot of problems for law enforcement in many countries in the Pacific region, when the authorities turned a blind eye. Racketeering, robbery, drug trafficking, money laundering, and gambling. Businesses then not only brought in fabulous money, but were untouched by the authorities and law enforcement. The Yakuza paid no taxes, and there were no laws or restrictions on them. By the 1980s, the Yakuza were making money from Japanese car companies like Mitsubishi Motors and Isuzu, controlling airlines, energy companies, and steel mills. The mafia was literally rolling in the money. For their counterparts like Southeast Asian triads, Italian Cosa Nostras, American gangsters, or maybe Russian mafia, the Japanese Yakuza are probably the most organized and law-abiding. It may sound strange in relation to criminals, but this is a historical truth. This is due to the fact that the authorities in Japan have always made it their primary goal to control the country, often turning an eye to the ways in which peace and tranquility were achieved. The police and the other authorities controlled the legal business, while Yakuza controlled the legal and semi-legal one. Yakuza didn't argue with the authorities, and they unofficially and sometimes even officially supported them as long as there was order. The modern Yakuza proudly trace a history back to the three groups of semi-criminal communities in medieval Japan: the city guards, Machi Eko, the shopkeepers, Tekiya, and professional gamblers, Bakuto. The Yakuza structures was generally established around the middle of the 17th or 18th century. Bakuto owes its birth to the Tokugawa era, the era of shogunate. During this time, the government financed a great deal of construction to rebuild cities and fortresses that had been destroyed during the wars. Of course, all this cost a lot of money, and in order to particularly offset the damage to the treasure, professional card players were actively recruited. Their job was to recruit workers and play cards with them, within a portion of the money paid for construction. Although most of the winnings went back into the treasury, the players were not left out of pocket. The history of techies is more vague and contradictory. Their main function was to control merchants and fairs and bazaars, so to speak, people's control, because their merchants had long been generally known as cheats and swindlers, always trying to sell a helpless customers shoddy goods instead of quality ones. The structures of the tekiya was exactly the same as that of the yakuza. Oyabun, the head of the clan, assigned certain shops to his clansmen, which they had to guard and protect. The shopkeepers and merchants were paid tribute for their trade and protection. Although it looked like a banal form of extortion, it was in fact a legal activity supported by the authorities who, for a price, offered not only to protect the goods and sell them in their territory, but also to intimidate competitors if necessary. The importance of the takia increased especially in the middle of the 18th century, when the feudal lords gave them the right to have a family name and to carry two swords, just like the samurai. Yakuza structures in their modern form finally emerged after World War II and the American occupation. The devastation and black market became the catalyst for the formation of criminal clans that engaged in traditional mafia activities, extortion, clandestine trade in everything from goods to weapons, and control of prostitution. By 1950, the American occupation authorities were forced to admit that they couldn't fight organized crime in Japan. By the mid-60s, Yakuza outnumbered soldiers in the ranks of the Japanese self-defense forces, with more than 2,000 gangsters clans comprising up to 200,000 people. Unlike other criminal groups, Yakuza still maintain tradition and a strict hierarchical order. Each clan is a separate family where rules are paramount. The head of the clan is the Oyabun, or Father, and the subordinates are the Kobun, or foster sons. Each Kobun in the family has his own responsibilities, but the youngest have the most. Discipline is sacrosanct, and it's called the code of honor. Anyone who violates it must apologize. Only the word sorry doesn't exist in Yakuza culture. The offender has to pay for his mistake. No, not with money, with the feelings of his little finger. This kind of apology is called yubitsume. An unusual apology is used in two cases: when a member wants to leave the gang, and when a member fails to fulfill a task. The guilty part has to cut or bite off his phalanx and bring it to the boss, or Yabun. Only after the clan chief forgives him, he can go to the hospital. It's associated with a large influx of surgical wards in the late 20th century, because a person who wants to start a new life, one way or another will be associated with criminals because of his hand. Historically, such a procedure was dishonorable. A warrior who was within the phalanx of his little finger couldn't hold a sword as firmly. Today, however, it's more of a formal punishment that exists in almost every Yakuza clan. True, it's no longer the sword of his hand, but his own life. The same anti-mafia laws prohibit Yakuza members from getting jobs, health insurance, and social benefits. To prevent companies from finding out about criminal connection, Yakuza wear silicone prostheses that are virtually indistinguishable from a real finger. Although everyone is afraid of the Mafia, Yakuza code forbids them from touching civilians. And besides, the Japanese themselves know that it's not worth crossing the Mafia's path. Just knowing about the clan wars is enough to discourage the desire. The same Yamagachi-gumi split caused more than 300 clan wars through the country, killing about 100 people, mostly Yakuza members. No criminal group in the world is as easily indefeatable as the Yakuza. Historically, tattoos on the body were seen as punishment, and they were usually in the form of rings, the number of which indicated the severity of the crime. In the case of clan representatives, the entire body is covered with tattoos. At the same time, each fragment is filled by hand, not with tattoo machines. This technique is called tebori. It takes hundreds of hours of work by a master and incredible patience on the part of a gang member. Anyone who cannot endure the pain of this process is not worthy of being a yakuza. Every tattoo is a different symbol. Newcomers or legal kabuns are situated with a dragon fighting a tiger, a symbol of success. The highest ranks of the Mafia get tattoos based on their profession. The image of Black Carp, for example, signifies total loyalty to the clan. Kintaro is a mythical strongman. He faces off against assassins who are skilled in martial arts. Demon. They are also worn by members who are indebted to the organization. And Fudo deity is a symbol of smuggling and drugs. But on the chest is usually a circle with a particular clan's image. The main sources of income were and still are brothels and illegal casinos. Now that gambling is illegal in Japan, the phenomenon of pachinko machines has become popular. The game is very simple. Similar to vertical pinball or billiards, requires no special skills and doesn't even offer cash winners. However, its success is so great that it's simply astonishing. The player buys a certain number, usually hundreds or even thousands of small metal balls, pours them into a machine from above, and then can regulate the speed at which the balls fire onto player field with a level designed for this purpose. The stream of balls falls down through a maze of channels and flops. Most of the balls are wasted, but one always falls into a special hole, after which there is an indication of victory, or a visual and audible representation.
Опа, еще. Вот они, вот они, вот они. Были только что.
Since gambling is generally illegal in Japan, there are no cash prizes. Winnings consisting of metal balls can only be exchanged for item prizes, such as a lighter or a bottle of perfume. However, many pachinko arcades have nearby stores where certain prizes can be exchanged for cash, creating an legal gray area often associated with the Yakuza. I think a lot of people know about amphetamine and methamphetamine. It was used as a regular psychostimulant during the invasion of Belgium and France in 1940 to relieve fatigue and make the German tankers feel lucky. They put amphetamine in their socks, and they were forbidden to take them off for several days in a row. And the same practice was used in Japan. During the war, Japanese soldiers were given amphetamine. Its effect is to increase activity and vigor, reduce fatigue, elevate mood, increase the ability to concentrate, decrease appetite, and reduce the need for sleep. After the end of World War II, Japan was hit by a drug epidemic. The war was over, but the addiction remained, and it was easy to get it. The ease of obtaining the necessary dose and the high demand for amphetamine led to its widespread use, and by the early 1950s there were about 2 million regular users of the drug. The Japanese epidemic reached its peak in 1954, when experts estimated that about 2 million of Japan's, 100 of which were using amphetamine in tablet form, and another half million were injected it intravenously. In 1954, the first year of the anti-drug campaign, 55,000 people were arrested in Japan for amphetamine-related offenses, but, for example, in 1958 only 271 people were arrested. The epidemic was thus completely eradicated. Overall, about 15% of the total number of injection drug users required intervention. However, Japan and the Asian region in particular are still the largest market for the drug. This is due in no small part to Japan's alcoholic society. But despite the best efforts of the police and the government, Yakuza continued to exist. It has spread its network across the country of Southeast Asia. Its channels brings weapons from the Philippines to Japan, drugs from the Golden Triangle zone through Thailand, and live good supplies for brothels and cheap labor from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Malaysia. Yakuza groups settled in Hawaii, Guam, and Saipan, where they worked with the American Mafia in prostitution, pornography, and racketeering. Yakuza interest also extended to the west coast of North America, where Japanese criminal clans control the lives of numerous Japanese communities settled in the United States. But today, tougher laws meant that more than 180,000 gang members who were in 60 simply had unlimited power in their territories were forced to go underground, with their numbers dwindling to 35,000 in 217. Traditional business has been replaced by new approaches with Yakuza robberies, extortion, and even cyber attacks on Japanese banks, which leads to only one conclusion. Crime so intertwined with local society and culture, not to mention the government, as many businesses owned by Yakuza bosses are perfectly legal, leads to one thought: Mafia is immortal.